North Carolina and Duke have played each other in the ACC Championship game 11 times previously. Are we about to get number 12? And more importantly, a clean sweep for the Tar Heels?
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, March 13th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, joined as we are every midweek by our guy, Coach Pac Kilby, and you're joining us at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch. Special shout out, by the way, to all you everydayers out there. Coming up on the show, we're going to begin to take a kind of broad scale look at the 2024 ACC tournament. We're going to talk about how Carolina can recover and recoup from the emotional win over Duke. But before we get to all of that, we just want to have kind of some fun looking at this ACC tournament, specifically with some games that Pac and I have played throughout this season. And I guess really more in the lead up to the season, Pac would just say is appropriate. But I want to start, we're going to end with Duke. I want to start with Duke. Pac, let me ask you this question. Would you like to see Carolina Duke round 3 in the championship game of the 24 ACC tournament?
Yeah, there's some pros and cons to it. The pros are we're in the championship game and it's Carolina Duke, and Carolina Duke is always fun. But the cons are, like, for one, that opens it up to an opportunity for us to lose to Duke. Not saying that we would, but that there is that opportunity. And it is tough to beat a team 3 times in a season. But there's also I don't know, maybe I'm wrong for this. I'm curious what everybody else thinks. But the more we play them in a season, it feels like it takes some of the oomph away, if that makes sense. It's like maybe not quite as meaningful. And I don't like that. And so I'd rather play in the championship game against somebody else, I think. But I wouldn't complain if we got a chance to beat them for a third time.
Yeah. And so, I said in the cold open, there have been 11 previous championship game meetings in the ACC. Guess what, Pac? The Tar Heels have won 6 of them. Duke's won. That means 5. So that's the other thing. You don't want to give Duke the opportunity to tie it up. I'm with you. There's something interesting into what you said there about maybe it does take some of the luster away. If my memory is serving correctly, I'm just thinking about this in real time. The last time Carolina and Duke played 3 times, with the third game being in the ACC final, was the 2019 season. That's like the Kobe White season, the Zion Williamson season. Remember, Carolina, it was the exact same as this. Carolina had won the 2 regular season meetings. Those were both without Zion, essentially. And then in the ACC Championship, Zion played. Carolina came so close to winning, and I think a Kobe White 3 missed at the buzzer, either for the tie or the win. But then obviously a more recent example, not in ACC tournament, but when the teams played again for a third time in the postseason, was the 2022 Final Four. The difference that year is the team split the regular season. Remember, Duke kind of had their way in round 1. Armando was guarding Paolo Banchero. That didn't go well at all, but that was the game in Chapel Hill. Obviously, Carolina won at Duke and then won in the Final Four. So those, Pac, if I'm remembering correctly, those are the most recent examples of playing 3 times, and the third game was in some sort of championship capacity.
Yeah. And remind me, wasn't there something going on there that second game at Duke whenever Carolina beat?
There can't have been anything big or overwhelming, because I don't remember hearing anything about that. It was a pretty standard game, I think. Oh, no, wait, now I remember. That was Coach K's retirement coronation that we went in and ruined Pac Kilby. It was glorious. So I'm with you. I love that Carolina has already swept the first 2. I'm never going to say no to them playing again, but I think it would take some of the shine away from it and give Duke a chance to get a little bit of payback, and no need for it. We've already done what we needed to do. So that said, Pac, let me ask you this question about the conference tournament in general. I know how I feel about this, but I'm curious how much stock you like to put into the conference tournament.
I put a lot into it. And here's the thing. As far as how much does it really matter for March Madness and for the success or how we determine our season, I don't know that it's that big of a deal. I really don't. But for me personally, I put a lot of stock into it because I grew up in Carolina. And it's funny because there were people in the Discord. This is a big time plug for the Discord, by the way. There were people in the Discord today that were putting the TV, on the cart, like teachers used to roll into the classrooms with the ACC logo on it. And it was just funny because it made me think that's exactly how I grew up. I mean, like I grew up in elementary school and we watched the ACC tournament at school. And on Friday of the ACC tournament, my dad would always come check me out and we would go home and we would watch the ACC tournament together. And so that's like core childhood memories for me. So when you ask me how much stock I put into it, I put a lot into it because I love to watch the ACC tournament. It's kind of like a pride factor. This is our conference. These are teams in our region, and Carolina has traditionally owned our conference and something we take pride in and want to continue to do. So personally, I put a lot of stock into it because I think it's valuable in that regard. And, but when you look at it as far as how is it going to affect the 1 seed line or not, I don't know. I don't think it. I like to think it wouldn't if we at least win one game, but I don't know how much value the committee would put into it.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's going to be determined both by what Carolina does and probably Tennessee and maybe to a lesser extent Arizona. But for me, those are the 3 teams in play for that 1 seed. But yeah, Pac, I mean, I firmly believe that Carolina is at no worse than a 2 seed at this point, even regardless of what happens this week. And so from that standpoint, I love the longevity of the regular season championship more so than the ACC tournament. But again, it shows you can win in this kind of capacity. That said, Pac, we've got 3 games to play. I've got 1 would you rather, 2 what ifs, and 3 over unders for us to tackle. Are you ready for this action?
Ready.
Are you ready for this jelly? Okay. This first one kind of goes in line with what we were just talking about. Would you rather UNC win the ACC tournament or lose prior to the championship game?
That's tough. I'm going to say I'd rather them win the ACC tournament. I know there's like this, I feel like most Tar Heel fans probably feel this way. There's kind of that connotation of like when Carolina wins the ACC championship, they don't do as good in March Madness. I don't know if that's factual or not. I have no facts to back it up.
Well, I'll tell you this. Trivia Tuesday yesterday was what were the last 3 ACC tournament championships for Carolina? And none of them were national championship years, but listen to the years, Pac. 07, 08, and 16. 07, that was the Elite 8 run where Carolina had that big lead against Georgetown and lost. 08 was the Final Four run where Carolina got blitzed early by Kansas. And then we all know what happened in 16. So definitely really good years, but not national championship years. But still, an Elite 8, a Final Four, and a national runner-up is pretty stinking good.
Well, it gets better each time. So maybe this year's our year to win the ACC tournament and the national championship. So now that you said that, I'm going to win the ACC tournament. Easy.
I love it. I had been leaning lose earlier just because the previous 3 championships have all been years where Carolina lost in the ACC semifinals, the 3 previous national championship years. And I'm just superstitious that way. So I'm going to stick with that answer. But I, having done that research about the recent ACC championships, tournament championships, I could get behind that as well. Pac, let's go to the what ifs. Why don't we do the 2 what ifs and we'll save the 3 over unders for the next segment. So the 2 what ifs. What if the combination of Cormac Ryan and Harrison Ingram can average 3 made threes a game in the ACC tournament?
Then we're probably going to win the championship. When we get consistent shooting from both of them, then I think then, that makes us really hard to guard. That opens things up for RJ, opens things up for Armando. And, that's really when we're playing our best, is when we're getting, consistent production from the two of them. So if those two are averaging 3 made threes a game, then we're in good hands. And I feel like an ACC championship would be ours to lose at that point.
Yeah. And by the way, I mean 3 combined. I'm not talking about 6 total. That would be absurd. We would be national champions, no doubt, with that. But yeah. And I went back and forth on that if I was going to say 3 or 4, but I felt like 3 was a good kind of baseline number to use for that. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think if those guys can average 3 made threes a game, whether that's Cormac making 3, Harrison none, flip-flopped, or a split of that, Carolina at worst is in the championship game of the ACC tournament. That's what I'm looking at. All right. Pac, this is a more negative what if, but I think it's an important one for us to wrestle with a little bit here. What if North Carolina loses on Thursday to the winner of the Virginia Tech Florida State game, which, by the way, we're recording this on Tuesday night, so that game has not yet been played?
I think that's a really good question, because that's a possibility. And,
right.
That's 2 solid teams. I guess the consequence of losing is, we start looking at what that means for our NCAA tournament seeding. And that probably, I'm going to go ahead and say, secures us as a 2 seed. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely would agree with that. Yes.
That changes a lot of the way our bracket could line up and things of that nature. So in my opinion, it's kind of a must that we get at least 1 win out of this. Because that at least keeps us in contention for the 1 seed, which is exactly what we want. We want the best possible path to the Final Four.
Yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, Carolina was 3-0 against those 2 teams this year, but they were not easy wins by any stretch of the imagination. And so it, as you said, is a very real possibility that could be a game Carolina loses. And if it does happen, I think there will be weeping and consternation and gnashing of teeth amongst the Carolina fan base, but it would be a regrouping moment where Carolina would need to circle the wagons, figure out who they want to be heading into March Madness, and get that going again. Because that, to me, would be a reversion to that 2-3 stretch rather than the 6-game winning streak that the Tar Heels are on right now. So wouldn't be ideal, but it would not be the end of the world. Carolina, as we've already said, would still be a 2 seed. They might be a lower 2 seed, but a 2 seed all the same. So, Pac, I want to have a conversation about the ACC tournament in general. But before we get to that, I want to know how the Carolina bench is going to perform. I'm going to give some over-unders, 13.5 points from the bench averaged in the ACC tournament. Is that good enough? We'll talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits to LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed or power or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Why? Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you want at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, Pac, we're talking ACC tournament action here today. For those of you watching, I've pulled up the ACC tournament bracket. It's got the day 1 results already filled in. And as we get to that, Pac, I've got 3 over-unders for us to discuss here. Here's number 1. This one's a little tongue-in-cheek. Assuming Corey Alexander is on the call of a Carolina game sometime this weekend, over under 3.5 my guy references talking about Armando Bacot.
Over.
Like 18 of them is the number. In fact, let's get more serious on it. Number 2, over under. Over under 13.5 bench points from Carolina on Thursday against either Florida State or Virginia Tech. By the way, Carolina in conference games this season is averaging 13.3 points per game from the bench.
I'm going to take the over here. I feel like our bench is playing well right now. We're getting some pretty good consistency out of them. And also, if we are going to make a run at this championship, we've got to win 3 in a row. And we need to rely on our depth, especially early in the tournament. So I expect them to play, quite a bit and also capitalize on some of the confidence that they've been gaining over the last week or so. So I'm going to take over.
I'm going to say over as well for exactly the reason you said. If Coach Davis is interested in truly making a big run at this, he's going to need, I'm going to say 20 minutes from Seth and 12 from each of the Jae'lyns with 3 minutes for Paxton Wojcik thrown in as well. And we need those guys to not only be out there, but be contributing. So give me right at 15 points from the bench on Thursday, regardless of which opponent it is. But you think about Florida State, for example, man, you need that length and athleticism from all 3 of these guys, right? And so that makes it all the more critical. I think their role would be less necessary against Virginia Tech, but still very helpful as we look at that. All right, Pac, the third and final over-under. Over-under 3.1 threes for RJ Davis on Thursday. The reason I said it there is that is his season average threes per game. He's sitting, RJ is, at 97 threes right now. That makes him third all-time in a single season at UNC. Number 2 was Brady Manek with 98. Number 1 is Justin Jackson, 105 in the 16-17 championship season. He was, by the way, ACC Player of the Year, I might remind you, as RJ is. So RJ, with 3 threes on Thursday, would become just the second ever Tar Heel to hit triple digits in a season. Pac, over under 3.1 for RJ on Thursday.
Well, how do you take the under on the ACC Player of the Year? Give me the over. I feel like he's kind of due for a big shooting night after the Duke performance. I think he's going to be ready to bounce back. He's got the ACC Player of the Year in the bag. He's going to be able to just go play freely, and I'm going to take him to hit the over.
I'm looking in real time how many times he's been over 3 or over. 20. 20 of the 31 games this year, RJ has hit 3 or more threes, Pac. That is bonkers. And as a reminder, he's got at least 1 in all 31 games. How insane is that? Okay, Pac, I will also take the over, by the way. Give me 5 threes for RJ Davis on Thursday. By the way, all of you can participate with us. We'd love to hear your answers to all these games we're playing. So, Pac, let's get into this bracket a little bit here. On day 1, we had 3 games, the 10 through 15 seeds. We had Notre Dame, the 12, beating Georgia Tech 84-80. Tech was down 17 at one point in the second half, came roaring back, actually took a late lead, and they just couldn't hold it. Notre Dame wins. NC State beat Louisville. That's the 10-15 game. And then Boston College 81, Miami 65, Pac. Miami was the 14 seed. They finished 14th out of 15 teams in the ACC. That is mind-boggling to me, Pac. That means that Notre Dame and Georgia Tech all finished above them. Quentin Post had 30 points in this game, showing why he got that 1 vote in the ACC Player of the Year. Oh, my word. I'm still ripping on that a little bit. Anyway, Pac, we move into day 2 on Wednesday. We've got Virginia Tech at Florida State. That's the noon game. That's the one that we're curious about because we play the winner of that game. Then we've got Wake Forest and Notre Dame at 2:30, Syracuse and NC State at 7, Clemson and Boston College at 9:30 p.m. So, Pac, we've got all those games. By the way, folks, Coach Rob and I are going to unpack the Carolina game tomorrow, preview that, so be ready for that on the Thursday show. Pac, as you look at this bracket, I want to get first right now, outside of the top 4 seeds, so outside of Carolina, Duke, Virginia, and Pitt, who is your dark horse to come and maybe win this thing?
Well, I've got 2. I've kind of waffled back and forth on.
Give me one of them, and then I'll give you mine if it's different, and then you give me your other one. How about that?
All right, deal. I'm going to go with Clemson.
No, dang it.
All right, fine. I'll go with Wake Forest. No, that was my other one. But with Clemson, I feel like they've got PJ Hall, who is obviously a threat to be a great scorer in any game. He's just so versatile and does such a good job offensively. And there's good guard play around him and some shooting. And Clemson has not quite been what I thought they would be this year, but they're still a threat. And so I would list them as kind of my dark horse. And I just don't – my only hesitation with them is I don't trust Brad Brownell. I don't trust the coaching, but I like the players that they have in place. So I think they could make a run just based on that.
Yep, that's exactly who I was going to go with, Pack. I like just the players they have. I think they fit well together. Shefflin's a nice compliment to PJ Hall. Joe Girard has been a great pickup from Syracuse. The leading free throw shooter in the conference, that matters in a big way here as we get into postseason play. But I think Clemson should beat Boston College today as you're watching or listening to this, folks. But then I think they can handle Virginia. And we already know that they can beat Duke. They almost should. They should have won at Cameron and just kind of shot themselves in the foot late. And so I really think that Clemson can make some noise. So that was going to be my pick. But yes, my other one as well was Wake Forest. Hunter Salas could go off at any moment. Damari Monsanto might have a game where he hits 47 threes. They've got some bigs. They've got shooting. I like Wake as the dark horse out of the top half of the bracket. I'm with you. I like Clemson as the dark horse out of the bottom half of the bracket. So, Pack, we want to get our actual predictions and picks for who's actually going to be in the championship game, who's going to win this thing, but also, how does Carolina approach Thursday after coming off yet another emotional win over Duke? We know what happened last time. They lost at home to Clemson. How can they fix that this time around? We'll get to all of that in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel. Hey, say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting big on an upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Like you might want to grab the Tar Heels. You can go find conference tournament odds. They've got them for all the tournaments. It's great. So if you want to get in on any of that action, go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. All right, Pack, we're looking at the ACC Tournament Bracket. We've each named a couple of dark horses here, but now I want to know, who are your favorites? As you look at this thing, who do you legitimately expect to be playing for the championship this coming Saturday evening?
I've got Carolina and Virginia. I think, Carolina kind of goes without saying. They're playing some really good ball right now, and they have the most advantageous draw in the bracket.
Yeah. I look at that top. Let me just, can I come in with you on that? Because I agree. And as I look at the top half of the bracket, I mean, there's obviously teams that could beat Carolina, but I don't see it happening,
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Carolina got a great draw, which is what they've earned.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. But all the teams that I would be concerned about playing are all in the bottom half. I'm not concerned about Pitt or Notre Dame or Wake or Virginia Tech or Florida State. You could lose, but I feel good about each one of those matchups. So anyway, Pac, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just felt so similarly with you. Go ahead and take us to the bottom half.
Yeah, in the bottom half, I've got it being a Virginia Duke semi.
Okay.
And the last time they played there was at Duke this year, and I just didn't think Virginia played well at all. And you know how they are. If they get behind early offensively, then it's a struggle. And Duke got off to a fast start, and the rest of the game was a struggle. But this is going to be different. This is going to be a neutral court, and I think that Duke had been playing some really good basketball, and Carolina kind of stifled that a little bit. And so maybe they're a little bit more back to earth, back to reality. And I see Virginia bringing the defense and getting it done, and get a Carolina Hoos final.
I like that. Now, here's my problem, Pac, is I know we picked them as a dark horse. I legitimately think Clemson gets by Virginia. I think Syracuse will give Duke a game, but ultimately the Blue Devils move past that. I legitimately don't know what to make of a Duke-Clemson game. I think that will be high level. Maybe Virginia has worn down Clemson enough with just making them yawn the whole game with all their putrid offense. But I think ultimately Duke finds a way to get it done against Clemson, and as difficult as it's going to be on all our emotions, I think we're going to have a round 3 between Carolina and Duke on Saturday evening. I apologize for that, everyone, but go ahead and prepare your emotions now for that reality. So, Pac, you've got Carolina and Virginia. Let me ask you this. If I made you pick championship participants, but you can't take Carolina or Duke, so you already didn't take Duke. If it wasn't Carolina, who would you take out of the top half? Would it be Wake?
Yeah, I'd take Wake. I'm sure as heck not putting Pitt in there. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, I like Carrington. I like some of their pieces, but I think Wake's got enough to get by Pitt.
Yeah. I got a little bias in there too. I wouldn't pick Capel if you paid me to do it, but so I'll take Wake Forest on the top half and stick with Virginia on the bottom.
Okay, I like it. All right, Pac, Carolina, Virginia. Who wins the game, and who's your tournament MVP?
Carolina and RJ Davis. I think Carolina's just playing so good right now, and just how good they are offensively. Even if it's Duke, I feel good about it. I know we just beat them, and I know that's a very emotional game, but Carolina's just playing good, and we have so many weapons offensively, and the way our defense is clicking right now, I feel good about it. And who better to lead us to that than our true MVP, RJ Davis?
Yeah, no need to complicate that, man. It's Carolina, it's RJ Davis. Now, in my championship game prediction, I would have Carolina winning, but not RJ Davis as the MVP, just because Duke, and in particular Tyrese Proctor, has done such a good job on RJ this year. Like, kudos to them, right? Like, good job on RJ. But because of that, I'm going to have Armando Bacot as my MVP because he had that big game in game 1, didn't do as much this time in game 2 last Saturday. I think he turns it back on, gets it going against Flip. And Armando Bacot is your championship game MVP right there. Now,
let me ask you a quick question on that.
Go ahead.
I know we're short on time, but if Duke and Carolina play again, do you think that they will focus as much on RJ as they have the first 2 games? And the only reason I ask that is because the first game they had so much focus and Harrison went off. The second game, they didn't really change their game plan up much, and Cormac went off. Do you think that they will try to limit those 2 more and free RJ up a little bit?
That's a great question, Pac. And it's funny because I actually asked that question about changing up game plans last week to Coach Rob. And my take on that was that I think Duke is arrogant enough to think that their game plan was sound and they should do it again, but the result will be different.
I agree.
And they didn't change it up, and the result wasn't different because, as I said all last week, here, say it all with me. 1, 2, 3. Carolina is the better team. It's just a fact that you have to wrap your brain around if you're John Shire. So I love that question, Pac, because at this point, they've tried that twice and it ain't working. It is not working for Duke. So maybe you do try something different, but here's your problem if you're John Shire. What do you do to switch it up? Who is it you're going to go after? Because clearly Carolina is showing all this balance. And if you go after Mondo, RJ's going to go off. If you try to lock up on Cormac, somebody else is going to go off. And that's what's great for us. And that's where Duke is in a serious pickle, in my opinion.
Totally agree.
All right, Pac, last question here, and then we'll get out of here. After Carolina's first win over Duke, they had a pretty quick turnaround to Tuesday where they were hosting Clemson, their lone home loss of the year, just the second time ever they've lost at home to Clemson. Do you see that being an issue this time? And if so, how do you refocus?
Well, it could be an issue just because anytime you win such an emotional battle like that, there's always an opportunity for letdown. But what I like about this setup more than our last quick turnaround, like you mentioned, into the Clemson game, is that we have some time off.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of time. Yeah, you can celebrate that victory, celebrate the fact that you won the ACC regular season championship, but then you've got to get back to work and you've got to practice. And Coach Davis has their ear and he has their attention, and they can kind of let the past kind of go. Yeah, we've celebrated it. Now that's in the past. We got to get to work because there's more to accomplish. And so I like that there's more of a break there so that they can let their minds switch gears a little bit. And then we can get back to hooping and not worry about what we've already accomplished and that kind of emotional letdown. So there is the opportunity. There's the potential for that. But I really like the setup and the schedule with that break before we play this Thursday. And I feel good about our chances of showing up ready to compete and not letting that happen again.
That's a great point, Pac. And also I would add with it that not that the Clemson game didn't matter, but baby, it's winning time now. It's the postseason, one game, not one game and you're done because you still got the NCAA tournament, but you get my point here that there's just a different level of focus that comes here as we get to the middle of March, where you got guys like Armando, where if you're Armando, there's a legitimate possibility. It's not likely, but Armando could only have 2 games left in his college career. Cormac Ryan could only have 2 games left in his college career. Hear me say, that's not happening, but it's greater than a 0% chance. You don't like to think that, but I say that to say these guys are going to be locked and loaded and ready to go for Thursday, whether it's Virginia Tech or Florida State. We're going to see it happen. Now, Pac, we can't get out of here without some quick love for not only RJ Davis winning the ACC Player of the Year, but Caleb Love winning the Pac-12 Player of the Year. What a cool thing that is. I don't see that as any sort of negative about their time together or their backcourt or why couldn't they figure it out. Sometimes it just works this way in sports or in teams where you just find a better landing spot. And clearly this has been a major win for both parties involved. So congrats to Caleb and Coach Steve Robinson, by the way, in Arizona. And obviously congrats to RJ and the Tar Heels. You love to see it. And of course, we're inevitably going to see Carolina as the 1 seed in the West and Arizona as the 2. Just buckle up for that eventuality. That's going to happen. And Brady Manek shouted them both out on Twitter. I love that. Just talking about getting the chance to play with them both and how happy he was for both those guys. You just love seeing that team camaraderie, man. It's great stuff. All right, Pac, let's get out of here. It's been a great show, kind of getting primed for the ACC tournament. Again, tomorrow, Coach Rob and I will preview specifically Carolina's Thursday game as we're getting ready for either Virginia Tech or Florida State. We'll know by the time you record. If you're not part of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community that Pac talked about earlier, you're missing out. Come on in, come be part of it. The link is in the show notes. It's free to join. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the show on video and audio, you need to do that. If you're watching on YouTube, just hit the subscribe button, smash the like button also so we know you are here. Also, you're going to want to hit that bell so you get notifications when I or we go live post-game or at other moments, and it'll just give you a little notification and you can just tap right on in. Y'all, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Cannot wait to talk tomorrow as it's going to be not game day. Yes, it will be game day next time we talk tomorrow. I'm flabbergasted in the middle of ACC tournament week. We'll talk again tomorrow when it's game day, but until then, peace.